All right, stand by for a quick intro. Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. This is episode 66. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby, and today's guest is none other than Tristain Hoath of Canada. Tristain has been on a tear this year, winning an STL show, taking 5th place at World's Strongest Man on his first appearance ever, taking 3rd at North America's Strongest Man, as well as taking 5th on a very stacked lineup at the Giants Live Open show. So let's sit down with Tristain. Let's find out what he's all about, what he's been doing, and what makes him so special on today's episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast featuring Tristain Hoath. Hoath. And all right, Tristain, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I didn't make one mistake. It was the Strongman Classic, not the Strongman Open for the Giants Live, but it gets confusing because it's just pretty generic names, an Open, a Classic, a Final. So, of course, bear with me. But I loved your cover picture on Facebook. Do you go to Tim Hortons regularly?
Oh, of course. Up in Canada, we always go to Tim's. No, it's not the greatest coffee. There's better places.
I do. I have been, of course, fortunate to go to Tim's. So I have family up in Nova Scotia. My step siblings are up there. So usually I get a few baguettes, some donut holes to go. Sometimes I try the coffee, but I usually go there for the baguettes.
Yeah, if you go, you got to get one of the iced cappuccinos. Those are probably the best things that they sell.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'll get a try. There's one Tim Hortons in Boston, but of course, whenever I visit Nova Scotia, there's one in every corner. So I think
there's a couple
that'll be the plan.
You can't go a block without having 4 of them within a stone throw distance. So there's lots here.
Perfect. I love it. But yeah, so Tristain, of course, appreciate having come on the show. So I think myself and many of the viewers are pretty interested in terms of how you got into Strongman and what those early days kind of looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I started training Strongman in 2018. Prior to Strongman, I competed, I did a bodybuilding show in 2016. Prior to that, I played, in high school, I played football, I wrestled, played rugby, tried basketball, volleyball, kind of just a little bit everything. After high school, up in Canada, in Saskatoon, we had a junior football team, the Saskatoon Hilltops. So I played junior football for 5 years. We won 3 national championships in that time as well, 2010, 2011, 2012. 2014, I moved to Regina, Saskatchewan to play for the University of Regina Rams. Played 1 year there, just kind of after playing 12 years of football, just kind of found my finish line. So the next year I lost 110 pounds in a year and decided to try and step on stage. So I did a classic physique, bodybuilding show, and then kind of held a little bit of weight, lower weight until 2018 when I started Strongman. We started one of my friends who did bodybuilding, Pam McQueen. She introduced me into Strongman. She had friends that were training out of a tire shop in Saskatoon. So we'd have to, it was only Sunday we could work because that's the only day the shop was closed. So we'd move a bunch of equipment around so that we could train Strongman. And then at the end of the day, we'd have to kind of move it back. And it was good. We just trained it on Sundays. And then a couple of months after I started training there, they opened a Barbarian Strength Gym in Saskatoon and transitioned my training into that. 2018, I think in June, I did my first novice competition, came out with a win in that one. A week later, I did my first amateur competition in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. I don't even know our place, but I think it was mid-pack. And then 2018, the end of the 2018, I did provincials, managed an invite into nationals in Canada here. I think I got 5th. Ended up out of the 5 events, I won 2 of them, placed second in another, and then zeroed the other 2 events. So that kind of kept me away from podium. And then 2019 came back, ended up winning nationals in 2019 in Regina, Saskatchewan. So that won me my Canada Circuit Pro card. Going into 2020, just before COVID hit, I went to Arnold's, the Arnold Amateurs. I think I placed like 17th, 18th, 19th out of 30 athletes. So it wasn't a great performance for me. But after that, I mean, COVID kind of shut everything down, training in the basement and trying to hide from everybody. And 2021, there's an open invite for Canada's Strongest Man for all pros. So I heard it through the grapevine. So I messaged JF and I was like, hey, JF, I was like, my name's Tristan. I was like wondering if I can get a joined in for Canada's Strongest Man this year. And, his reply back was, he's like, sorry, I don't know who you are. So I had to explain to JF that I won nationals earlier in 2019 and I won my pro card from that. And once he found that out, I was given an invite in 2021. The only show I did was Canada's Strongest Man, but placed fifth, won 2 of the 10 events out of there too. So happy with that, just behind Maxime placed fourth. And then 2022 season kind of started again, but my season started off rocky. I partially tore my oblique training for one show in the beginning of June, so I had to drop out. And then my first, the only show I did was Western Canada's Strongest Man in 2022. And on the last event, I ended up tearing my bicep. So that kind of rode off the rest of that year for me. But looks like it did well because in 2023 came back. We had a show just outside Edmonton here in St. Paul called Farmstrong. So I did that show, got second, lost it on stones, but came second in that show. And then Western Canada's Strongest Man was after that, placed second. Went and did local pro-am here. The K-Days or King of the Klondike is what we have it here. So I won that show. And then went out to Gimli, Manitoba for the Magnus Classic qualifier. I won that, which qualified me for the Magnus Classic in Iceland. After Gimli, competed at Shaw Open, where I got seventh. Canada's Strongest Man was the week after, placed sixth, which qualified me for North America's Strongest Man this year. And then, at the end of 2023, went to Iceland, competed, ended up winning the Magnus Classic, which was huge for me. In January of 2024, I guess, I transitioned from being coached by Larry McEwen to being coached by JF Caron. And then we were able to get me an invite to Strongman Champions League in Martinique in April, which I won. And then, we got, 2 weeks before WSM started, I got my call up for a reserve. 36 hours later, got my call up to that I was competing in World's Strongest Man. So had 8 days from kind of being told I was going to flying out. So it was a very quick prep. But ended up I was going into Worlds just not even wanting to be last. And we ended up in fifth place. So I was over the moon, ecstatic with my finish there. And right as soon as Worlds ended, Giants Live contacted me for a show, got contacted by Brian Shaw for the Strongest Man on Earth. So after Worlds, I was supposed to do another local show here, but just due to timing and restraints, I couldn't do it. So
you're big time now. You gotta save your energy for the big shows now.
Yeah, so I did Giants Live, Strongman Classic in London in July 13th, I think it was. So I finished fifth there, 2 points off of podium, couple of mistakes, but we're close. And then 2 weeks after that, so 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, competed at North America's Strongest Man, ended up in third. It was a fight right to the end with myself and Lucas Hatton. We were tied in points going into the last event, and he got me in the last event, so finished third there. And now we're coming up to Strongest Man on Earth, and then the week after that is Canada's Strongest Man as well.
All right. Well, so a lot to break down there. So, of course, that's quite a run, and that's quite the detailed history. So I love it because I'm very much of what did the journey look like to getting here? So some people think that if they haven't heard of you, think like, oh, maybe just popped up 2 years ago, but it's been 6 years of training. It's been 6 years of hard work, plus the football background. So the going back to the Regina Rams. So your goal was to be a CFL star, kind of coming out of high school and heading into college.
Yeah, like my goal, like in high school, I was kind of like, you know what, like let's try and make a go of this football thing. It was always one of the top sites. So after playing junior football before I went to the Regina Rams, I did go to a CFL like combine in Edmonton, competed or showcased in that. And then I went to the Regina Rams to play for a year. And kind of when I was leaving, like I had a talk with a coach and we discussed things, and I knew that like the CFL dream was probably there if I wanted it to be. It just life changed and goals changed, and it just wasn't something I was wanting to pursue anymore. And the gym and other things were more interesting, and that's unfortunately or fortunately kind of put me on the path for where I am now.
Sure. Now, how you say you lost a lot of weight after um, after after your football career going into bodybuilding, but how much did you weigh were you a lineman, I assumed?
Yeah, my heaviest, I was an old lineman. I played like left tackle for junior football, and then
Mhm.
when I went to the university, I was between left and right guard. So played on the O line. But yeah, like my heaviest I was playing at was 330 pounds, and when I like the after spring camp when I quit was or in the summertime I was 313 at the end of May of 2015.
Sure. All right. Interesting. So it looks like you kind of once you started strongman, you probably gained all that weight back. But
Yeah,
it's
pretty.
interesting because again, because looking back at the similarities. So of course, like you have a very kind of similar, of course, kind of similar path, like a Thomas Evans, of course, fellow strongman competitor. You mentioned a little bit on the wrestling background. How many years did you wrestle for?
I wrestled for 5 years, so all 4 years of university and then or of high school, sorry,
Mhm.
and then 1 year, my first
Cool.
year of university, I wrestled as well.
Oh, excellent. I wrestled for 10 years. I think wrestling is kind of a great sport, great for many things in the future, especially if you decide to take up athletics or not. Even in the business world, I think wrestling is a great mindset. But I'll add you to my long list of wrestlers because there's so many good wrestlers in the either in the heavyweight or the weight classes that have done so well in that end. But I did want to talk a little bit about kind of world's strongest man. I remember kind of watching you in some of the interviews saying that going into world's strongest man, you were hoping not to take last. You were mentioned that in your recap. But you ended up winning your group and taking fifth in the final. But after that, how did that change your own expectation of yourself going forward?
I mean, now talking with people, it's just now that we've showcased and shown that, I'm able to be a part of the group and able to hold my own and, push others in events that's what we're expecting now in other shows. I mean, we went to Giants was the same thing. I
Mhm.
was expecting top half, top six was pretty happy. So I ended up fifth and like close to podium as well. Like all the four of the two, well, myself and Rag were only half a point away, and then Pablo was 2 points ahead. So like we're close to fighting for podium spots in certain shows. So now like North Americans prove that as well, and now we're the strongest man on earth. I think it's a little different. I'm just fighting for placing here, so I'm hoping for top 10, top half placing at strongest man on earth, and then but other shows like I think Canada's strongest man is definitely going to be close to. I mean, there's a podium there for sure, if not winning that event.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now looking at that Giants live show, that of course the top five of that Giants live show was very similar to the World's Strongest Man final, minus Evan, and you add in Pavlo, and it was pretty much the same exact lineup. So it's just a testament of how stacked that lineup was. And the guy that was right behind you was Alexei Novikov, another former World's Strongest Man winner. So again, a great company to be with. But yeah, let's talk about North America's Strongest Man because I feel like it's a show that, of course, I think I was watching Lucas's recap earlier today, when he was kind of talking about kind of the show itself. Of course, it seems like a great show, had a great list of events, has pretty unique equipment, like the 10-inch log, the sear dumbbells and all. And then even like the last event being that cool medley, which is pretty unique on its own. But I feel like it doesn't get quite the probably recognition it does, maybe because it's broadcasted in French, so it makes it a little hard for us English speaking folks to kind of break down. But it looked like it was a pretty solid show for you. You looked like you were pretty much either podium or on the top half of every event.
Yeah, I know. Like going in, I was a little tired from Giants Live, and I've had some like breathing and lung issues that I've been dealing with all year from smoke and stuff. So wasn't the greatest because it kicked off like the week before North Americans. The smoke came back through Edmonton and kind of set me on a bad path for breathing issues. But we were able to push through. The events were really good for me. I think the lowest, like I zeroed the circus dumbbell, but I've been having forearm and elbow issues. So to be third and still zero in events was, I think, just a testament for like overall consistency for how well I placed in the show. And I think the lowest placing I had otherwise was 7th. So nothing else underneath, top half for all the events. And the deadlift I won, I tied the deadlift win. I was second or third in a handful of others events. So I think just my consistency and overall strength for kind of all the events has been helping me push through and showcase, my strength.
Sure. Now, is circus dumbbell normally a pretty good event for you, or is it something, or even on a good day, is something that's a tough event for you?
Yeah, it's always been like a tough event for me. I don't know if it's just like I think it's a little bit of the technique and then some elbow issues and shoulder impingement stuff. So it's a work in progress. It's just like hit and miss kind of day of for if the 220 is going to go up or not. So I know it's the starting weight at strongest man on earth. So we need the points there, and hopefully it'll be there that day. It's just trying to make up points here and there. Otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you ever need any tips of circus dumbbell and overhead pressing is always a favorite. So if we can talk later, but I'm eventually going to ramp up on press only coaching. So something for everybody that's watching if they're ever interested in some overhead coaching. Of course, there's always the full coaching, but there's no one that this coaches specifically for the overhead.
No,
but overall, like you're. Yeah, but I would say overall, your last, of course, you've had quite the run for your last 5 shows. Of course, North America's Giants Live, World's Strongest Man. Of course, your SEL win in Martinique, and then I think you mentioned it before, but of course, I think people forget about the Magazine for Magazine Classic being 3 days, 8 events too, and those are unique events, not necessarily your standard 9 events. That's pretty wild. So outside of so of course you've already had a pretty busy kind of first half of the year. So you're planning on doing of course the Shaw Classic, and then the week after you have Canada's Strongest Man. Then you recently got invited to the Rogue Invitational, those are all sound super exciting shows. Do you have anything else kind of planned after that?
Yeah, just after Rogue, we're going to be doing we'll go back and compete in Magnus Classic to defend my title. So we'll be in we'll be in Scotland from the 8th to 10th, and then the plan for us was we're going to stay there. So we're going to stay in Scotland. Hopefully, try and meet up with the Stoltmans if it works out, and one of them or two of them, and both get an in workout in if we can, and then we're going to travel Scotland, UK for I think 8 to 10 days, and then jump on over to Iceland, compete. I think the Magnus Classic's the 22nd to 24th of November, and then we're going to stay in Iceland for 5 days and do some sightseeing. And the wife didn't come last time, so we're going to go and take the month of November for some traveling.
That's awesome. So of course, with all that competing, I think one thing that, of course, I think the World's Strongest Man likes to highlight is always like the professional jobs outside of pure strongman. So of course, you're a very strong officer, maybe the strongest officer since Derek Poundstone, maybe Ronnie Coleman. But how are you able to kind of balance all the work as well as competing kind of almost full time as an athlete? How's that been for you this
Yeah.
past year?
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, up until the summer here, I was well, I'm a police officer, but I was a patrol officer. So we work shift work. The way we work is like pretty much 4 on, 4 off, but we work 3 sets of nights and then 1 set of days and then go back to our nights. So that was probably the toughest working, 11, 12 hours, fitting in 2 to 3 hours of training, plus driving, prep, sleep, kind of just eats up your day. So in June or July, I transferred to the front counter just to work a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, take complaints as they come in. Don't have to, not working shift work. I can get a dedicated schedule for training, have my weekends off. So that's been it's been a good change. It's definitely helped me progress a little bit more and kind of get into routine. And then like the time off has been kind of hit and miss. Thankfully, work has been supportive, and my senior officers have been supportive of everything. So they're working as best as possible to let me get my time off I need. I kind of ran out of a little bit of holidays, so I had to take my competitions over the summer. I took leave without pay, so
Sure.
just like 3 to 5 days without being paid to hopefully to follow this dream, and hopefully it works out. And the cash on the other side too is, I mean, I'm willing to take a hit to pursue the dream of strongman. We don't get to do this our whole life. So when you get the opportunity to drive and push for it and you're kind of set up, you might as well try, right? So that was my thought. So we're all in and trying to make this work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like the kind of plan A. You can kind of going and kind of hoping for the best. Something always Arnold Schwarzenegger said. He said never to don't put too much effort into plan B, or else plan B is gonna happen. So always focusing on plan A. But especially kind of with the Rogue and the Shaw Classic, even the mid pack still gets even the bottom half still get paid very well. So that's that'll be kind of exciting. Of course, kind of opportunities for you as well. But you mentioned a little bit, so it looks like you had one coach for many years, and then the past year, of course, when you've had a lot of your success, of course, you've had JF as a coach. But what kind of impact, or what kind of the big impacts or the big drivers that JF has helped you as an athlete in the world of strongman?
Yeah, I mean, like the biggest reason, like JF, when I was looking at new coaches, JF was my number one front runner. Obviously, his impact in the sport of strongman in Canada, let alone like what he's done on the world stage and where he's gone, is a huge help. He definitely helped me get into the Strongman Champions League show. Not too sure kind of what part he played in the rest, but I know that he's been there in the back corner. He's been helping me out. And then I went from like Larry, he's my business partner now. Like we own a gym together, like United Strength and Power in Edmonton. So we're still good friends. We both kind of realized at the same time that, the training or coaching had run its ground. So, but moving to JF has been unreal. I mean, obviously, like his knowledge in the sport with, everything has helped me out a lot. My deadlift went up from an 815 single after Magnus to, in March I hit 880 400 kilo deadlift, and then just this last weekend 848 or 385 kilo for a double. So like we're gonna be pushing over 900 pounds for strongest man on earth. So like just even a couple of changes of him looking at it from like less than a year has put on 100 pounds of my deadlift. And so that's kind of like unheard of once you kind of get to this like upper level of athletics. But and then just his training regime and focus on other things has helped me become more consistent with like the top level or these higher level weighted shows. And then like it's nice because he sends out like our programming once a week, and then we do a video chat with him once a week as well to discuss training and discuss what's coming up and shows. So just having him as a comfort piece has been like that's helped so much. And then like even him, like he came down to like he came down to Worlds to help out and help Wes and I compete there, and then is also coming to like the Strongest Man on Earth next week. So he's going to be in Colorado as well while we're there. So just nice to have a coach that's, you know, he's still in the sport, still wants to be around, still has good relationships with the people hosting shows so that he can be there. And that's just like a kind of testament to just how JF was and well, he competed as well.
Sure. Now you mentioned kind of your deadlift kind of blowing up. So was it with, of course, JF was a, of course, renowned deadlifter. He usually always won the event, no matter what deadlift it was at World's Strongest Man and some of the other contests. Now is it like, for instance, like, is it a lot of technique cues? Is it his programming, his peaking protocol? Like what do you think has kind of helped you the most when it comes to the deadlifting itself?
I think it's just like the amount of variation that he made me, like he's making me do. So like we deadlift, we do 3 deadlift exercises a week. So we'll squat and then we'll do a raised deadlift on the same day. So we'll do like a 12, 15, whatever, 18-inch deadlift pulls. But like focusing on like the only time I'm pulling from like with a deadlift bar is when it's from the floor. And that's only once a week. Everything else is either power bar stuff or axle. Trying to focus on you don't need to be pulling on the whip the whole time. So I think just the consistency and the different training with the deadlift. And then like after my main deadlift session, we always do some sort of deadlift accessory, whether it's like snatch grip pulls or like deficit deadlifts, just something else different that's also like a deadlift variation. So I think just the consistency, and then he gave me a couple technique tips for like feet placement and where to be focusing on for hip pulls as well. So it's just kind of putting that all together, shot my deadlift up.
Sure. Like in terms of feet placement, he was always a very narrow stance deadlifter. So is that kind of what he gravitates to for his athletes?
So mine were too narrow. So we were kind of comparing when I pulled my 815 in December to when I pulled, I think I pulled 815 like 3 weeks after, but suited. And he was looking at the two and he's like, well, like when you're pulling non-suited, he's like, your feet are really close. But when you pull in a suit, he's like, your feet are a little bit wider. He's like, but you have more power there. So he's like, just trying, he's like, move your feet out to where you would pull in a suit. He's like, pull the same either way for feet placement. And he's like, see what the transition is. And so just being able to get my feet a little bit wider, move my hips in, or was able to get my hips engaged a little bit more and my knees forward more. And that just changed, like just that little stance changed a lot of my deadlift technique right there.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Of course, those are pretty interesting tidbits. But probably some of the best tidbits coming from one of the best deadlifters, especially in Canada. So of course we've been of course pretty positive with this show. But like now you say you're of course a co-owner of a gym now. How long have you had the gym in Edmonton for?
So we got the keys, I think August 10th. So almost a year to date now. We had the keys, but then it took us like 3 months of like renovating, painting, getting the equipment in until we were ready. So we opened up kind of temporarily in October of last year, but our like grand opening was December 2nd of 2023. So we've had the space. So we've been in the space full time for 8 months now.
All right, great. Now, like, so you, of course, you have your gym. Of course, you've been training for years, and of course, there's plenty of things on social media. But is there anything that grinds your gears? Is there anything that you see at the gym or see online that just makes you upset? Like, for instance, I have plenty of grind in my gears. It's probably a question I've asked probably on almost every podcast that I had. But like, for instance, an example of mine would be when you see like especially like some good athletes, they'll post a lift, they'll write a whole essay on what they did and why it's unique, but they won't post how much weight they use, or they never post how much weight they use. So that usually kind of grinds my gears because I need those data references in terms of when I see their form and see the weights, how that works, and if they're doing a good job, and also I take time, or I take note in terms of how close they are to their competition. But is there anything in the world of strongman or in the gym world or in social media that grinds your gears, Mr. Tristain Hoath?
Always. Oh, there's always stuff that grinds my gears. I mean, as a gym owner, the biggest thing that grinds my gears is like, hey, you grab plates from one rack, use them for something, and then just either threw them on the floor somewhere else or put them in a different location. It's like everything has a place to go. I was like, we don't have a lot of space in the gym. So where I've set it up is nice and neat and tidy. Let's put it back there. But like even today, like I showed up, did my workout earlier, and I showed up and like the yoke was loaded with 445s on it. And I'm like, you couldn't tell me that you couldn't take those off and put them back where they, because I was like, no, I have to do all the work. So I was like, that's probably the biggest one is just people not cleaning up after each other after the gym. And then I'm gonna echo you, but like when people post, I mean, I try and put my weights on for the most part whenever I lift.
Mm-hmm.
But like when people post lifts or weights, and I'm like, oh, I gotta freaking count plates. Like, just make it easy for everybody else. Put a weight on there and be done with it. Everyone's gonna find out how much you're lifting, anyways, unless it's hidden in one of those like what are those Titan logs, but those ones that are covered where you got to put things inside of them. I know there's a couple of guys with those.
Well, now that
logs.
Bartos and Big Dog make those logs, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the big dog logs.
Mhm.
So like those ones, like those are the only ones where I'm like, you can't tell anything, or like the homemade logs, you don't know how much they are. But guys, let's just add some weight to stuff. No one cares. You're a professional or semi-professional athlete at this point. We're all moving kind of close to the same weight. Let's just put weight on our posts. It's easy.
I like it because I need those reference points. That's why I follow you guys, because they're supposed to be strong and sometimes informative. But it's interesting. So you were talking about not putting weights away. I don't know if you I have a buddy named Matt Mills. Matt, he's a gym owner in Connecticut, but he'll watch guys in his gym. If he sees like a plate, like for instance, a plate not being racked, like, or just plates on the floor, he'll go to his camera system, look who did it, and then charge them like $25 per weight that's left. So he's made a good amount of money, but now everybody puts their weights away. So maybe taking up something from Mr. Matt Mills. I played this game yesterday. I had Zach McCarley on. Zach won America's Strongest Man 105 kilo for the fourth time. So it was a good podcast, but we did something similar to Marry, Fuck, Kill, where we maybe a little more PG version called Start, Bench, or Cut. But who would Tristain Hoath start, bench, or cut if he had Brian Shaw, Zydrunas Savickas, or Tommy Stoltman? So who would you start, who would you bench, or who would you cut if you had those three, maybe for upcoming strongman contest? You didn't know the events or weights, but you had to put a guy forward. Who would be your pick? Your picks. All of them have one.
I mean, I think I'd probably, yeah, I don't know. Probably start Brian Shaw. I think just as like consistency across his years in the sport would probably be the best. Oh, probably bench Stoltman and then cut Big Z, as sad as that is. But I think Stoltman, the way he's going, I think he's just an absolute monster with what he's doing now. I know, Big Z and stuff back then, weights are different, things were different, but with how the shows are going now, and they're a little more cardio receptive, I think Tommy kind of takes a little bit more of a hit than what Zydrunas does.
Sure. And Tommy, he's won 3 titles and just turned 30. So he still can get some of that more old man strength, and he, knock on wood, he hasn't had any really significant injuries. So there's nothing really kind of holding him back, and he has great support system. So I think Tommy's going to be durable, and he's going to keep going, and we're going to see something bigger and better going forward. But talk about going forward. So According to Strongman Archives, you're 32 years of age with a bright future ahead of you. When everything is said and done, what are you looking to accomplish in the sport of strongman?
Overall, I mean, looking at it, like I'd like to one day we're going to win Canada's Strongest Man and have that title for myself as well. But like kind of moving forward, looking at like next year, just like looking to podium at podium at some of the international shows, whether it be like, I mean, we're only 2.5 points off of WSM this year. So like we're with a actual prep and a good off season, I don't think that's unreasonable. It'd be like a podium at Giants Live, winning North America's Strongest Man. Definitely, like it's doable. And then, if the invites are coming, like Arnold's would be friggin' amazing to get an invite to get back to the Rogue if it's a possibility. Like just trying to prove that, in the next couple of years that I was I'm there. I was able to, come out of somewhat nowhere, I guess, or it's a fluke that I got where I am. But just to prove that, I'm strong. I'm here. Let's try and make a name. And I'm right now in Western Canada, at least, like I'm the most accomplished, international strongman athlete out of Western Canada. Before, like we had like Tom McGee, Jeff Dolan, and Scott Cumin. Tom McGee, I think he got second at before Worlds was an actual world's strongest man. Like he got second there. I think Jeff Dolan was a top 10 competitor in the 90s as well. And then Scott Cumin went 2013, 2014. So like overall, like other than Tom, I've had the best placing. And then I think now just the most consistent placing across for Western Canadian athletes. So in Canada itself, like it'd be nice to be known for what I did in strongman. And like I'm only looking at, I would say, like 3 to 5 more years of chasing this dream and trying to live this through before we kind of not totally walk away, but potential to like take a step back and kind of probably only compete locally and not try and travel all over the world to make this thing happen. So I mean, it's kind of the time frame I'm giving myself. Give myself 3 to 5.
All right, excellent.
Still kind of pushing
what I
this level.
didn't hear in that.
We'll reevaluate, but
sorry.
No, it's we'll reevaluate in 3 to 5 years and see where I'm at.
All right, excellent. Sorry to jump in. You froze for a second, so I thought you were done talking. But of course,
no, it's all good.
That was a great, but I didn't hear a Tim Hortons sponsorship, so I think that's that should be on your list.
Maybe we'll talk to.
You really want to make
it
big time.
Tim's. Yeah, I think that's why not? We'll go to the local Tim's, try and talk to a couple owners.
Perfect. Or even a Tim Hortons franchisee. I saw that. So of course I've been seeing that. I saw you've been ramping up your YouTube channel. So if the listeners are interested, I'll have the YouTube below. You're also on Instagram, and are you on any other social media sites that people should follow?
Not quite TikTok yet. That might be in the future, but like we have a Facebook. Instagram, Strongman Hoath, and then Facebook is Tristain Hoath.
All right, perfect. Well, I'm gonna have that all below down there, so you guys can follow Tristain, follow his journey, especially through his next 4 contests of the Strongest Man on Earth, Canada's Strongest Man, the Rogue Invitational, the Magnus for Magnus Classic. What a great lineup of shows. So, of course, wish you best in that. So, those are all my questions for today, Tristain. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been a real pleasure, and of course, some great insight. So, I hope everybody will kind of tune in and see what it takes to get it to this high level of strongman. But before we finish off the show, I've had of course, I had the individuals on the podcast kind of leave the listeners with some words of advice. So what advice do you want to leave the listeners to end the show?
I mean, my biggest thing is giving back to the sport. Like if I'm not competing in a show and it's local to me, like I'm there volunteering, either reffing or plate loading, whatever it is. So if you're looking to get involved in strongman, or you want to learn how to get better, or how other athletes prepare for shows, or how they prepare in the show, show up, either show up to support or show up to volunteer, whatever aspect it is, preferably volunteering. But the sport doesn't get better without our athletes giving back and helping out. So the biggest thing is give back, help out, show your support. None of us got to where we are without the help of others getting us here. And before that, the same. So take a reality check, realize that the sport doesn't grow without people helping and giving back, and put some effort in.
Well, those are some wise words. Thank you, Tristain. Thank you for coming on. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell. Of course, make sure you follow Tristain in his journey. And until next time, everybody, stay strong.